morning. I thought I'd do a impromptu live because it is just come to my awareness. It is National Suicide Attempt Day. Now, for anybody who doesn't know me, my name's Kate and I am a trauma-informed practitioner and coach, and I help women to break free from the overwhelming effects of anxiety and stress brought about through domestic abuse, childhood trauma, and also help them to heal and resolve any addictions that they may have developed as a result of the system wanting to self-soothe. Now, during lockdown, lockdown saw a significant rise in people's mental health getting worse. So these internal emotional wounds, which you probably hear me talking about a lot, have got significantly highlighted for a lot of people. Isolation is what did it for people, and I would say with most people it would be abandonment wounds that have had a great big spotlight shone on it, and these abandonment wounds would stem back to childhood. Now, whether that's how they felt in school, how they were being made to feel in school, or whether that was within the home environment itself, there'll be something within their childhood setting that made them feel rejected, made them feel not good enough, made them feel alone and isolated from whoever. And that's why lockdown shone a great big light on these wounds, because it is a replication of they were isolated from society. Many people, didn't see anybody, a soul at all. If they lived on their own, they didn't see their family, they didn't see their friends, they didn't see anybody. And that caused a lot of problems for a lot of people. Suicide is a last resort. It's when people don't see any way out. You find people who are genuinely mean it. They don't tell people they're going to do it. What you can find a lot is, particularly with, just spilling my drink, what you can find a lot is people who have narcissistic personality disorder, they can use suicide as a way of emotionally manipulating people. But they have no intentions of doing it. But let me tell you, that is very distressing for the family members that they are emotionally manipulating with the threat of them ending their life. I experienced it more times than I can care to remember with my ex. And it is extremely, extremely distressing. I can't tell you the amount of times I headed over to our marital home expecting to find a body. So I can completely relate to, how the distress that family members go through when this happens. And it's probably even worse if they don't see it coming. And most of the time, these people who are serious about ending their life, they don't say anything to anybody. And this is why being aware of the little signs, if people are going quiet for no reason whatsoever, really out them, not for no reason whatsoever, but they're going quiet, it's really out of character for them. If they are, they may use humour to hide how they feel. That's a common one. They may appear very, very busy all the time. Again, that's a common distraction tactic so that nobody notices. People who are close to ending their life generally do everything within their power to hide it from the outside world. And this is why I feel so strongly that workplaces should have support systems in place. Because it's only because unfortunately the NHS system it lacks a lot to be desired, sadly, in terms of the mental health arena. It has done for a long time, and lockdown has made it a million times worse. So I think these resources need to be more available in the workplace. Because the bottom line is, now you may say, take the approach of, employers may take the approach of, well, why is it our problem? It's very much the employer's problem. Because if their staff are withdrawn, what happens is when we are in trauma response, our capacity to cope shrinks. That causes memory loss. Now, if they're experiencing memory loss, how are they going to be productive? And if it's a workplace that piles a lot of work onto people, and I see this so many times, where employers have unreasonable expectations of their employees. They give them more workload than what they can actually cope with. And the fear of losing their job causes them to over-deliver, overwork, and leading to burnout. But that doesn't just lead to physical burnout, it leads to mental burnout. And mental burnout can lead to suicide. So it is really, really important for employers to start to take this more seriously. If they want their teams, their workforce to be more productive, then it is 110% in their interest to make sure that they improve their psychological well-being. If nothing else, to improve that capacity to cope, which will improve their memory. By improving their memory, they're going to improve productivity. And that's before we even get on to the impact that stress and trauma has on our physical health. It physically slows down. What happens is our fear center sends a message to our vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the main nerve that leads from the base of the skull right the way down to the gut. And it has lots of branches off that lead to our major organs. As a means of preserving energy, it slows down organ function. That's what leads to high blood pressure. That's what leads to heart problems. It shuts off our digestive system. And that leads to a whole host of problems. The gut makes up 70% of our immune system. Point number one. If we shut off our digestive system, it increases the acidity levels in the gut. When you increase the acidity levels in the gut, that then causes inflammation, which then damages the cells within the lining of the gut. That is going to damage cells that make up your immune system. If your digestive system's shut off and you're switching back on, switching off, switch on, switching on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. You have undigested food sitting in your gut. And when it switches back on again, your gut has to work extra hard to try break down that digestive food. That is going to contribute to more inflammation. The more inflammation there is, the less you are going to absorb nutrients. And so you can see where this is a domino. This is a domino effect. That one thing affects another. The vagus nerve directly slows down the immune system as well. Because again, it's only meant to be a short-term fix to get us out of a jam. We're not meant to be in a stress response for as long as what most humans are, because our stress response is caused by our thoughts, our fears, our insecurities, our self-belief wounds that are formed from childhood, mainly. So if somebody feels like there is no other way out, and let me tell you, having experienced, I mean, at its worst, my system was reacting to an app alert going off on my phone. And it would respond as if I was trapped inside a burning building. I would be fast asleep. An app alert would go off and I'd be like a cat on a hot tin roof. It's the most horrendous feeling in the world. And that constant feeling for some people is that overwhelming. And they look at their environment, their landscape, their triggers, and they don't see any way out. They don't see it changing. And their only way out is suicide. And they won't tell anybody they're going to do it. They won't tell anybody. They'll just do it. People who usually cry wolf have no intentions of doing anything. So this is why I really, really hope more companies really take this seriously. There's so many reasons. People are suffering massively since lockdown. It's always been a problem. But lockdown has really, really highlighted a lot of problems for people. A lot of problems. Addiction is up. Again, people need to start to numb out. They need to numb out. They need to self-soothe. Because their brain is associating alcohol, drugs, food, whatever their addiction is, with short-term pleasure. And the brain only acts in the moment. But for the likes of the wrong types of food, can lead to obesity. The stress response itself actually can lead to obesity. That's another thing that, you know, it's a big topic in itself. Domestic abuse has been on the rise. I would hazard a guess that the relationships would have already been toxic, but because they've been so busy, and again, this is something I can relate to myself, because when I had my business, I knew what was going on with my husband at the time, but I had a distraction. My distraction was I was busy working 12 hours a day in my business. Yeah, I had glimmers of that. Ooh, my body's responding as if I was trapped inside a burning building. But next day I was back to my distraction. Until I was on my way home. Then that reaction would start again. Because my system knew what I was walking into. So that is what loads of people will have been experiencing. And let me tell you, experiencing domestic abuse on an ongoing basis can lead people to suicide. You can literally feel like you have no other way out. Half the time, if they've got children, the only thing that keeps them going is their children. I know when I was fighting for my life, I hadn't have had Sophia. Dodging bullets of abuse whilst fighting for my life. I think my mental state of mind may have been an awful lot different. But I had my daughter. She had nobody without me. And that was my driving force. And that'll be the same for so many people. But unfortunately, you know, there are many, many cases where even people with children, sadly, the overwhelm becomes so intense, even with the children. They feel like the children are better off without them. Because they've been conditioned to believe that actually this abuse is your fault. You are conditioned to believe the abuse is your fault. We need to be aware of people's mental states of mind and guide them to the right support, because unfortunately this support isn't readily available. It's certainly not available within the NHS. Certainly not in this climate that we're in. We have to, after the virus we won't name. It needs to change. It really does need to change. So if you know somebody's struggling, reach out to them. Reach out to them and offer them some support. Just offer them that support. Because you don't know what difference that would make. So on that note, I'm going to sign off now, and I'm going to go and do some of my book editing and try and have a productive day. So have a great day, everybody.